effect. What is your favorite home cooked meal? Me personally, I'm really simple. I like nachos. I can eat nachos every day of the week. You know what I'm saying? Like just something simple. Favorite book or movie?
Dallas County judge has decided to allow some rap lyrics to be used in a murder-for-hire trial.
The case concerns the 2020 murder of Melvin Noble, a rapper who went by the name Mo3. Fox 4's Stephen Dial has the update.
He was 3 days from being buried when investigators say his friend and rival had already paid for the bullet. That's the story I want to bring you today. A Dallas highway, broad daylight, and a rapper running for his life while cars kept driving past like nothing was happening. This is a Yella Beezy and Mo3 case. And if you're new here, welcome to Shadow Crime. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell because these updates come fast. And if you miss one, you're going to be lost when the pieces start connecting. I put real hours into getting this right for you, so the least you can do is stick around for it. Let's take you back to November 11th, 2020. Melvin Noble, the world knew him as Mo3, was driving north on Interstate 35E in Dallas. It's the middle of the day. Traffic is moving, and out of nowhere, a masked man gets out of another car and starts walking toward him. Mo3 doesn't wait around to find out what happens next. He jumps out of his own car and starts running, right there on the freeway, weaving through traffic like his life depends on it. Because it did. The gunman chases him down on foot. Multiple shots fired, right there in front of anyone who happened to be looking out their windshield that day. One of those shots hits Mo3 in the back of the head. He's rushed to the hospital, but it's too late. He's pronounced dead. A bystander in another car actually gets hit too, but they survive. Now think about that for a second. This isn't a house at 3 a.m. This isn't a dark alley. This is a man being hunted down in front of witnesses, on camera, in the middle of the day. Whoever wanted Mo3 gone did not care who saw it happen. For years, this case sat there. The shooter, a man named Kewon White, gets arrested about a month later, but only on a gun charge. 9 years federal time. Not for murder, just guns. And for a long time, that's where it stayed. A grieving family, a viral video of a man running for his life, and no real answers about why. Then in March 2025, everything changes. A Dallas County grand jury drops an indictment, and the name attached to it stunned a lot of people who followed hip-hop out of Dallas. Yella Beezy, real name Markies Conway, not just a fellow artist from the same city. Someone who fans say Mo3 actually had history with. The indictment doesn't accuse him of pulling the trigger. It accuses him of something arguably colder. Capital murder while remuneration. In plain English, prosecutors are saying he paid for the hit. I want you to sit with that phrase for a second, because it's going to matter a lot as we go deeper into this. Not rage, not a moment that got out of hand, a payment. So who was Mo3 really? And what did people say was actually going on between these two before any of this happened? That's where we're headed next.
Dallas County judge has decided to allow some rap lyrics to be used in a murder-for-hire trial.
The case concerns the 2020 murder of Melvin Noble, a rapper who went by the name Mo3. Fox 4's Stephen Dial has the update.
This was a big part of the prosecution strategy, trying to use rapper Yella Beezy's rap lyrics against him. Yella Beezy, whose legal name is Markies Conway, is accused of hiring a hitman to kill Mo3, his rap rival. The judge's order today is somewhat of a blow to the prosecution strategy. She's allowing 2 songs by Conway and 1 song from Mo3 to be played in court. The songs seemingly speak to the feud between the rappers, but the judge did not allow key prosecution songs that talked about bounty or celebrating the murder. The judge is also not allowing the Instagram live video that Yella Beezy was in the day of the murder. Prosecutors argued the lyrics in songs and said that they explained the motive behind the killing. The defense argued that the rappers are playing a character similar to professional wrestlers, and that the lyrics should not be taken as fact.
But the songs that the state has selected do not contain all that. In fact, they are braggadocious about criminal activity, but the criminal activity mentioned is directly on point to the charged offense. They talk directly about placing bounties for reprisal. They talk about the murder, and they talk about the feud.
Rappers make songs about putting hits on each other. They make songs about bounties. again, it goes to the edginess and, in some people's opinions, the crassness and distastefulness of the music, but it's not evidence that Mr. Conway is making some sort of admission to committing the crime.
We also got the prosecution's witness list. On the list is Dallas rapper Trap Boy Freddy, who has songs with Yella Beezy. He has not been charged in this case. One of the songs that the judge is allowing the prosecution to use, they cannot play the part where Trap Boy Freddy is speaking.
Melvin Noble grew up right there in Dallas. And if you know anything about his music, you know he wasn't just making party songs. He named himself Mo3 after his mother, and that alone tells you something about who he was as a person. His songs like Outside and Everybody weren't just hits. They were personal. In an old interview, he talked about how success in that world automatically makes you a target, whether you have security or not. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that once you're known, people who are less fortunate start looking at you differently. You become a target just for existing at a certain level. Looking back now, knowing how a story ends, that quote hits different, doesn't it? Here's where it gets complicated for those of you trying to follow along. Fans have been saying for a while that Mo3 and Yella Beezy had some kind of beef. Nobody could really point to the exact moment it started. It wasn't one big public blow-up that everybody witnessed. It was more like something simmering under the surface, showing up in comments, in subliminal lyrics, in the kind of tension you only really notice once you go back and look for it. Now, prosecutors say this wasn't just petty rap rivalry. They're building a case that this was a genuine, escalating feud, one that went from trolling and diss tracks to actual gunfire long before Mo3 was killed. And this is where things get heavy. So stay with me. Investigators have pointed to a prior shooting involving fellow rapper Boozy Badass, tying it to the same swirling tension in the Dallas street scene at the time. The claim is that things had already turned violent once, and that the situation kept building from there. Prosecutors also allege that Yella Beezy has ties to a set of the Crips, and that he was affiliated with a group called Get Rich Cartel. They say his social media and his music leaned into that lifestyle, and that he surrounded himself with people known for violence. Now I want to pause here and be fair to both sides, because that's what we do on this channel. None of this has been proven in a courtroom yet. These are allegations prosecutors intend to present. Yella Beezy has pleaded not guilty, and his side is pushing back hard on almost every piece of it, which we're going to get into. But here's the detail that really stopped me when I read it. Investigators say that in the days right after Mo3 was killed, Yella Beezy withdrew $40,000 in cash. Sit with that number for a second. $40,000 in cash within days of his rival's murder. Prosecutors are pointing to that withdrawal as financial evidence tying him to paying for the hit. So if the money trail is what convinced investigators, what convinced a jury that this even needed to go to trial in the first place? That's next. A Dallas County grand jury looked at all of it, the financial records, the alleged feud, the ties investigators laid out, and on March 18, 2025, they came back with that capital murder indictment against Yella Beezy. Just days later, he's arrested. Now here's something interesting for you. He wasn't picked up quietly. This was a man with an active music career, someone who had just teamed up with Lil Wayne not long before, and now he's sitting in custody facing the possibility of the death penalty if convicted. That's the reality of a capital murder charge in Texas. It's not just prison time on the table. It's his life. His bond gets set at $2 million, which, if you think about it, tells you how seriously the court is treating this from the start. That number eventually gets reduced to $750,000, and he posts it and gets released, but not without strings attached. House arrest, an ankle monitor, random drug testing, no contact with witnesses, victims, or co-defendants, and he has to hand over his passport. This is a man who is essentially locked into Dallas, watched and waiting. Now, let's talk about the other men tied to this. Kewon Dontrell White, the alleged shooter, was already sitting in federal prison on that gun charge from years earlier, serving around 9 years. But once this indictment drops, he's now facing an actual murder charge connected to Mo3's death, not just a weapons case. And there's a second man, Devin Maurice Brown, also indicted in connection with the killing. Investigators say phone records and surveillance data placed both of these men near the scene before the shooting happened. Brown has denied any role in it. Here's where I want you to really lean in, because this next part is the kind of thing that changes how an entire case gets tried. Just this month, a judge made a ruling that has completely reshuffled the order of these trials. Kewon White, the alleged shooter, is now set to go to trial first on August 24th, before Yella Beezy ever steps into a courtroom for his own case. And get this, it was actually White's own defense team arguing that Beezy should go first, not the other way around. Think about what that means for a second. Whatever comes out in White's trial, every piece of testimony, every witness statement, every bit of evidence the prosecution presents, all of that could end up shaping what happens to Yella Beezy before his own trial even starts. It could help him. It could completely bury him. Nobody knows yet, and that uncertainty alone is why legal experts are calling this a genuinely complicated situation for everyone involved. So with both of these men now on a collision course toward the same courtroom in the same month, what happens when the evidence itself becomes a real battlefield? Because that's exactly what's happening right now, and it involves something you wouldn't expect to end up in a murder trial at all: his own music.
Dallas rapper Yella Beezy and his two co-defendants in a murder-for-hire case are set to stand trial August 24th. His real name is Markies Conway. Prosecutors say he paid a hitman to gun down his rap rival on 35 in Dallas, November of 2020. And a debate in the case is whether rap lyrics can be used as evidence. Fox 4's Lori Brown live with the story. Lori.
Heather, today, attorneys for the accused hitmen and prosecutors argued if the gunman should stand trial first or the rapper accused of hiring him. Here is the backstory. Dallas rapper Yella Beezy, whose real name is Markies Conway, is accused of hiring Kewon Dontrell White to shoot his rap rival, Mo3, whose real name is Melvin Noble. Prosecutors say the two rappers had a long-standing feud that Conway also wrote about in his lyrics. White, the alleged hitman, was arrested in December 2020 and is serving an 8-year, 9-month federal prison sentence on firearm charges related to the incident. The judge ruled today that White will still stand trial first, but his defense attorneys argued the man accused of hiring him should be the first on trial.
Mr. Conway's attorneys have absolutely no duty to disclose anything to the state about what their defense is or anything to any of the other co-defendant attorneys about what their defense may be. And it may be that the only way that we can discover that there is some alternative theory, that there is some other evidence that exists that would benefit our client in his defense is through that trial, is through Mr. Conway's trial.
We are asking the court to do what's right, not only by the criminal justice system, but by the family, and let this community hear this case of the man who is alleged of shooting and killing Melvin Noble on I-35 and is also charged with aggravated assault for shooting a neurosurgeon in the head that day on the freeway.
White's attorney argued that there could be bank statements and other financial records that could come out at Conway's trial, and not knowing about those documents puts their client at a disadvantage. Prosecutors argued that with White in custody since 2020, his counsel has had plenty of time to seek out those documents on their own. The judge plans to make a decision about whether or not rap lyrics are admissible at a later time. The judge asked attorneys to make sure that all three defendants are ready to stand trial August 24th in case a plea deal ends up changing the schedule. Heather.
All right, Lori Brown live in Dallas. Thank you.
This is where the case takes a turn that has people far outside of Dallas paying attention, because prosecutors want to use Yella Beezy's own songs against him in court. Tracks like Keep in the Streets, On Your Head, Take 3, and Gassed Up. Investigators testified that in some of these songs, he's bragging about putting a bounty on Mo3 and even celebrating after he was killed. Prosecutors are also planning to bring up an old interview he did, where he talked about needing to, in his words, get his lick back. They're arguing that statement alone shows motive. But here's where his defense is fighting back hard. And I think you need to hear this side too, because that's what we do here. His lawyers brought in a university professor, an actual expert on rap lyrics in criminal cases. And he testified that rappers create exaggerated personas for entertainment. He said something that really stuck with me. He warned that jurors might take rap lyrics far more literally than they would lyrics from any other genre, like country music, for example, and that this kind of bias could end up convicting someone based on a persona, not an actual confession. He even pointed out there's a racial element to this. saying jurors may already carry stereotypes that make them quicker to believe a black man's lyrics are a literal admission of guilt rather than art. And then his defense dropped something that genuinely surprised a lot of people following this. They argued that Mo3 himself may have manufactured this entire feud purely for commercial purposes. Think about that for a second. Their claim isn't just that the lyrics are fiction. It's that the beef itself, the thing prosecutors say led to murder, might have been manufactured to sell records. That's a bold argument to make in a capital murder case, and it completely flips the narrative you'd expect from a defense team. As of right now, the judge still has not made a final ruling on whether any of these lyrics will actually be allowed in front of the jury. That decision is expected before trial, and depending on which way it goes, it could shape this entire case. So here's what I want to leave you with tonight. If someone's art can be used to convict them, where exactly do we draw the line between a performance and a promise? And if this feud really was partly manufactured for attention, does that make what happened to Mo3 even more tragic? Because a story built for entertainment turned into a real execution on a public freeway? We're going to keep following this one closely, especially with both trials now converging on the same month. If you want to be here when the verdict actually drops, make sure you're subscribed with that bell turned on, because Shadow Crime will have the moment it happens. Drop your thoughts down in the comments. I actually read every single one of them. Until next time, stay safe out there.